Very good morning to everyone. Welcome to this very important media briefing. A particular welcome to our guests from the media houses as well as guests from the industry that we are collaborating with. Let me also acknowledge our host, that is the CEO and the Commissioner of the Border Management Authority, Dr. Michael Masiapato. Let me also acknowledge the Deputy Commissioner who is responsible for operations, that is Major General David Chilembe. In absentia, I will also acknowledge the Deputy Commissioner responsible for corporate services, that is Madam Jane Tupana, all the Assistant Commissioners, Deputy Assistant Commissioners, Senior Commandants who are in our midst, as well as all other officials, fellow South Africans who could be watching this briefing. My name is Mkhuliseni Rubengo. I will be directing this program today. We are colleagues gathered here today for two important reasons. The Commissioner will be sharing with us the performance of the Border Management Authority for second quarter. That is the period that covers 1 July to 30 September for this financial year. He will also share with us the operational plan for the festive season. And the program is very short. After he has obviously shared with us those two important aspects, we will obviously allow the colleagues who will be showing us or demonstrating to us those gadgets that we'll be using at the ports. We'll set aside some few minutes for that. We'll also allow members of the media to ask questions. We will request Commissioner Meme Mkhotsi to assist us with that item. And we will then, in terms of conclusion, give an opportunity to Assistant Commissioner Mapeto to obviously give us some vote of thanks and the concluding remarks. Those media houses that will want to have one-on-one interviews with the Commissioner are also welcome to do that after, obviously, the event itself. There will be some finger lunch that obviously will help us ourselves with. Ladies and gentlemen, without any waste of time, let me allow the Commissioner to come to the podium to brief us on the operational plan of the festive season as well as the Q2 performance report of the authority. Commissioner.
Colleagues, good morning. Maybe before we start, as the Border Management Authority, we do appreciate and understand what is the issue relating to the period that we are in now, which is described as 16 days of no violence against women and children. So as part of a demonstration of our participation in that broader reality, we will just want to light this candle here, and it will then remain on as we proceed with the proceedings. So allow me to do that. That's great. Colleagues, let me start by recognizing the Deputy Commissioner for Operations, Major General David Chilembe, retired, the Deputy Commissioner for Corporate Services in her absence, Madam Jane Tupana, all the Assistant Commissioners of the Border Management Authority present here, the Deputy Assistant Commissioners that are also present in our midst, and all of the other colleagues in the broader border management ecosystem. We'll also like to appreciate the members of the media who fairly joined us today to be able to cover this conversation. But we also want to appreciate South Authority today had convened this media briefing fairly to address two matters. The first one is just to reflect on the report of the work of the Border Management Authority in terms of the second quarter of the year, which is 2025-2026. And of course, that effectively covers the period, the 1st of July 2025 to the 30th of September 2025. The second part, which is the most critical part of this conversation, is to unveil the authority's festive season plan, mainly for the 2025-2026, which will fairly run from the 10th of December 2025 until the 15th of January 2026. As already indicated, this media briefing actually takes place in a critical time when the nation is currently observing 16 days of activism for no violence against women and children. Therefore, as the Border Management Authority, we do reaffirm our commitment to ensure the protection as well as the seamless facilitation of the movement of women as well as vulnerable members of society across our 71 ports of entry as and when they present themselves to that particular space. Further, this briefing is taking place just 2 weeks after the Border Management Authority had successfully facilitated the seamless movement of more than 40 heads of state, other government leaders, various delegates, technical teams, as well as journalists from all over the world who came into our shores to attend the G20 Leaders Summit. This was the second largest international event which the BMA had to facilitate since the BRICS Summit, which was held in August of 2023. This heightened movement remained instrumental in testing and strengthening our system for high impact and sophisticated high security movement of dignitaries. So, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to start with the first part of the conversation, and that is the report of the second quarter of 2025-2026 as indicated. In this particular quarter, we can indicate that the BMA had around 11 targets that had to be implemented. We had 12 targets that had to be implemented, and out of those targets, we basically were able to achieve 11 of those, which effectively put us at 92% achievement rate in terms of the targets as contained in our annual performance plan, obviously despite the persisting challenges that are widely articulated in as far as the capacity around the authority. Further, I want to indicate this quarter was characterized, which is quarter two, was characterized by heightened operational activities which were mainly driven by the number of preparatory meetings for the G20 Leaders Summit, which took place within the country. Just in a period of 3 months, the BMA facilitated a number of dignitaries which came to attend more than 40 various G20 track meetings in various parts of the country. Further, we have also observed in quarter two of 2025-2026 that Groblersbrug, port of entry with Botswana, facilitated a significant number of members of the Zion Christian Church who came to attend their September pilgrimage at the city of Moria in Limpopo province. With all these activities, the BMA immigration officers processed a total of 9,283,658 travelers as they were entering and leaving South Africa in the second quarter of this financial year. Increase of about 23% of processed travelers compared to the same period in 2024, where we processed just around 7,576,650. And of course, with the help of surveillance technology, mainly the drones, in this particular second quarter, we were able to apprehend about 8,135 individuals who were attempting to enter the country illegally through the ports of entry as well as the respective segments of the borderline. Of that particular number, 4,092 of them were found to be undocumented, 2,061 were fairly just inadmissible, and 1,982 were undesirables. As always the case, in terms of historical empirical data, the majority of the intercepted individuals in that second quarter were led by Basotho nationals, followed by Mozambicans, Zimbabweans, as well as Swati nationals. And of course, this is a reflection of the consistent, long-standing trends within the sub-region. And of course, trend-wise, there hasn't been anything unusual. Therefore, if we are to look at the incremental figures, the border guards had effectively been able to stop around 505,060 entering the country since the deployment of the first contingent in July of 2022. So that is a representation of what we describe as an incremental figure. In addition, in the same quarter, about 15 high-powered suspected stolen vehicles were intercepted as criminal syndicate attempted to smuggle them out of the country. The vehicles were handed over to members of the South African Police Services for further processing. Even in this instance, if we are to look at the intercepted number of vehicles incrementally, we are sitting at around 349 vehicles since the deployment of the first contingent of the border guards. Further, in the same quarter, about 1,700 kgs of counterfeit clothing as well as footwear estimated at around 1,280,645 were intercepted in various ports of entry. And of course, that brings us to an incremental figure of around 220 million worth of illicit footwear as well as counterfeit clothing that has to be intercepted. In this period, the officers once again intercepted 0.5 kilogram of crystal meth, 240 grams of heroin, as well as illicit cigarettes to the value of 827,500. In terms of document fraud, we have been able in this second quarter to intercept around 40 fraudulent travel documents, and most of these were confiscated at OR Tambo International Airport, at Cape Town International Airport, as well as Violdrift Land Port of Entry. Once again, during this quarter, we want to indicate that around 172,858 travelers were screened by our port health officials, and effectively around 73 of those travelers were refused entry for failing to produce valid yellow fever vaccination certificate. In addition, the port health team had also processed about 997 mortal remains, of which 964 were being exported out of the country. This, in practical terms, mean individuals from other jurisdictions who effectively demised whilst in South Africa, and they had to be processed out. And of course, out of that number, 33 were basically imported into South Africa. And that basically meant individuals who actually lost their lives whilst in other jurisdictions and had to be processed back into the country. Unfortunately, we had an incident where 25 mortal remains were returned due to failure to produce required documentation. One thing that becomes very much painful, but of course, without documentation, we are not able to process the individuals. And of course, that basically means a delay and all of those administrative issues. Further, around 43,729 health-related consignments were presented and processed in the country by our port health teams. However, about 5,000 units of illicit birth control pills, as well as 117 medical test kits, were intercepted and destroyed. And of course, this includes some skin lightening creams. In this regard, the South African Health Product Regulatory Authority, SAPRA, has warned that many of these products contain harmful and illegal ingredients, including high concentration of mercury, hydroquinone, as well as tropical steroids, which pose a serious health risk, such as skin damage, kidney complications, as well as long-term toxicity. In addition, our port health team tested about 969 travelers for malaria, And out of that, around 57 individuals were confirmed to be positive, and they got transferred into the nearest medical facility for attention. In the agricultural space, about 39,316 consignments were presented and processed into the country. At the same time, in this particular instance, about 1,241 CITES consignments were presented and processed for entering the country in the second quarter. We also want to indicate that during this quarter, the BMA, working together with the Transnet National Ports Authority, fairly called TNPA, secured operational space for the permanent deployment of the coastal guards of the BMA at the 3 critical seaports of Mossel Bay, Gqeberha, Richards Bay, and East London. There are actually 4. This is a critical development towards establishing the full-time presence of this critical responsibility of the border management in those areas of work. So that is, in short, a description of work that is done by the Border Management Authority in the second quarter of 2025-2026 financial year. And of course, we only just elevate critical issues. There are a lot of other technical and more tactical details that has been done in that particular period of 6 months. So can we then now move into unveiling the BMA 2025-2026 season operational plan? We want to start by indicating that this particular plan has been endorsed by key structures that are critical in the border management ecosystem. And those are the Border Technical Committee, 10 Director Generals, as well as of other entities, the Interministerial Consultative Committee on Border Management, consisting of 10 ministers under the chairship of Dr. Leon Schreiber, who is the Minister of the Department of Home Affairs, the Parliamentary Portfolio under the chairship of Honorable Musa Chabani, as well as the Parliamentary Select Committee on Security and Justice under the chairship of Honorable Jane Makananisa. Operationally, this particular plan is supported by the National Joint and Intelligence Structures, commonly known as the NAJ Joints, under the chairship of Lieutenant General Tebello Musikili, as well as all respective Prof Joints across the 9 provinces. It covers the work of the BMA across the 71 ports of entry, fairly comprising of 52 land ports, 10 international airports, as well as 9 seaports. It includes all the critical functional responsibilities of the BMA, which are immigration facilitation and management, agriculture and environmental biosecurity, port health, as well as general border law enforcement, which includes access control responsibilities across the ports of entry. These responsibilities further extend into the designated border law enforcement area, which covers 10-kilometer radius inward from internationally recognized borderline, as well as 12 nautical miles seaward in terms of the coastline. In developing this plan, the BMA considered all historical patterns as well as key lessons learned from the previous festive season operations. It remains embedded under the principle of intergovernmental relations, cooperative governance, as well as collaboration with the various counterparts across the entire government ecosystem, which is inclusive of law enforcement authorities, traffic agencies, municipalities, state security structures, as well as border communities. Historically, this period of December and January festive period remained characterized by a significant increase in traveler volume, which always places significant pressure on our port of entry. In fact, South Africa continues to confront a range of complex border-related challenges, including illegal migration, increasingly sophisticated cross-border criminal activities, as well as the smuggling of illicit goods. These challenges place a significant strain on our already limited resources, which basically hinder economic growth and undermine efforts towards deeper regional economic integration. It is against this background that the BMA continues to engage our neighboring states to ensure the development of robust, integrated, and well-resourced border management system that is free from any criminal interference. However, The festive period always positions us to anticipate risks, improve the processing time, refine command and control, and elevate our responsiveness to the high volume and complex border management environment. At this time, our strategy places deliberate emphasis on enhanced capacity, improved queue management, strengthened traffic control, as well as interstructural collaboration. Looking at the past two festive seasons, empirical data does confirm that our cross-border movement remained dominated by foreign travelers. For instance, in the 2023-2024 festive period, we had processed about 5 million travelers. 78 of those were foreign travelers, while only 22% were South Africans. In terms of the 24-25 festive period, where we processed just around 4.5 million travelers, 70% of those were foreign nationals, with 30% being South Africans. As for the number of intercepted travelers attempting to enter the country illegally, once again, historical data does confirm that Basotho nationals continue to lead, followed by Zimbabweans and Mozambicans. Further, historical data confirms that over 75% of the travelers are facilitated at only 10 key ports of entry. And those are OR Tambo International Airport in Johannesburg, Beitbridge Land Port of Entry to Zimbabwe, Lebombo Port of Entry to Mozambique, Ficksburg and Maseru ports of entry to Lesotho, Cape Town International Airport in the Western Cape, Oshhoek Port of Entry to Eswatini, as well as Koopfontein, Caledonspoort and Groblersbridge Land Port of Entry. Therefore, during the development of this plan, these historical patterns, operational experiences, and strategic lessons formed the backbone of our planning process. In fact, this historical data played a critical role in shaping the content of our 2025-2026 festive season planning. The plan consists of 4 phases, and those are the planning phase, the execution phase, the demobilization phase, as well as the sustenance phase. Now, let's then look into some bit of issues around the planning phase, as it were. We want to indicate that our planning for this particular festive season started as early as the 15th of September 2025, and it is going to be ending on the 9th of December 2025. 2 days from now, we are therefore to end the phase. This particular phase has been consultation or consultative engagement with multiple stakeholders in the country, operating in both public and the private sector. As a result, we have managed to secure a few critical partnerships with various stakeholders to ensure the successful implementation of this plan. All of this is guided by Section 5C of the Border Management Authority Act. For instance, the Western Cape Provincial Government, together with the City of Cape Town, they have given us around 50 personnel that actually are deployed at Cape Town International Airport, mainly to assist us in managing immigration activities. Similarly, the Gauteng Provincial Government has also availed around 80 personnel for deployment at OR Tambo International Airport to assist us, once again, to deal with issues of immigration. The Department of Tourism is also going to give us 160 tourism monitors to assist in queue management within the various ports of entry. The Department of Social Development will be deploying social workers through their provincial structures to assist us in handling particularly unaccompanied minors or victims of trafficking within the ports of entry. This becomes very critical in understanding that the Border Management Authority is operating at 25% capacity, and of course we are standing in a position where we are not able as an authority to deliver this particular work by ourselves, and that is why we have to advance these particular partnerships. We do know that the authority is fairly young and we are still to build the capacity as we go forward, and we do know that all of that is dependent on the financial resources into the value chain. Further, we have also achieved partnership with the South African Freight Forwarders Association, the Association of Meat Importers and Exporters, South African Association of Ship Operators and Agents to fund some of our operations through cost recovery model. Very much clear and very much practical that we are not able to effectively deliver on the work without having to advance these partnerships. Therefore, we also have put together partnership with Protected Mobility, Elson Africa, Detective, where they will be assisting us in the deployment of integrated suite of advanced surveillance mobility as well as drones and body cams will be fully operational to improve our detection capability, but also address issues of corruption, mainly that arises from those or some among us. At the same time, we also have some partnership with Sanlam, which will be assisting in terms of the enhancement of health and the well-being of the BMA teams on the ground with some bit of basic general amenities. We also partnered with Trek as well as Sanral to improve traffic flow management, congestion risk, particularly at Lebombo, port of entry on the N4 towards Mozambique. As always the case, the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure will also be providing the additional infrastructure such as temporary lighting, ablution facilities, special temporary barricades, as well as JoJo tankers for the provision of additional water within the port of entry as well as the corridor. Further, additional ICT technicians will be deployed at prioritized ports in order to provide direct support to our movement control system. In this regard, additional remote support of ICT work will then be provided for by our colleagues from SARS, technicians, as well as some teams from the Department of Home Affairs. We have to advance all these partnerships to make sure that this work is ultimately delivered. We could not lament on the financials for all the while. We just had to do something differently. Further, the planning phase was also conducted or was also characterized by extensive interjurisdictional discussions with our 6 immediate neighboring countries. Here we talk about Lesotho, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Namibia, Eswatini, as well as Botswana. We had to make sure that we align our processes in order to make sure that there is a seamless and streamlined border processes as well as coordinated modalities around the processing of both people and goods in our land ports in particular. As a result, we have agreed to adjust some operating hours or the operating hours at some of the key ports of entry which do not operate on a 24-hour basis. To this end, as the Border Management Authority, we had to then present that particular request to the chairperson of the Interministerial Consultative Committee on Home Affairs, which is Dr. Leon Schreiber, who had approved our request to extend operating hours in the following ports. In terms of the ports with Botswana, we have agreed with Botswana to extend operating hours in 2 ports, the first one being Grobela's Bridge, port of entry on the N11 to Botswana. It does operate under normal circumstances between 6 and 10 in the evening. And this time around, we are going to start at 6 and close at midnight. And that is going to be on the 19th to the 24th of December 2025. In terms of the second port, which is Swartopfontein, it normally operates from 7 until 7 in the evening. And therefore, we are going to then extend it and start at 6 and then close at 2000 hours, and that is in the evening. That is going to apply on the 22nd and the 24th of December 2025, as well as the 30th and the 31st of December 2025. In terms of the arrangements we have with our Mozambican counterpart, extend in terms of Kosi Bay port of entry, that is in KwaZulu-Natal, that enters into Mozambique. Normally it operates from 8 until 5. They're going to start early at 6 and we're going to close at 8 in the evening. And that is going to be on the 15th of December 2025 until the 15th of January 2025. With Eswatini, we have agreed to extend operating hours for 3 ports of entry. The first one being Mahamba port of entry that normally operates between 7 in the morning until 10 in the evening. We are then going to still start at 7, but we are going to close at midnight, and that is going to be on the 23rd as well as the 24th of December 2025. The second port is at Gibis Reef, port of entry. Normally it operates from 7 until 8. We are going to then close at 10, meaning that we'll open still at 7, but then we'll close at 10, and that is going to be on the 22nd and the 24th of December 2025. And of course, the last port with Eswatini is Mananga, port of entry, which normally operates from 7 until 6. We are still going to start at 7, and then we are going to close at 8 in the evening, and that is going to be on the 22nd and the 24th of December 2025. With Lesotho, we basically have around 5 ports where we are going to be extending operating hours. The first one being Sanipas, port of entry, which always operates from 6 to 6, and we are going to then start at 6 once more, and then we are going to close at 8. That is going to be on the 21st and the 24th of December 2025. The second port is Caledon-Spoort. It always operates from 6 until 10. We are going to start at 6 and then close at midnight on the 23rd of December, as well as the 4th of January 2026. And then, once again, in a period which we describe as the apex period, the 24th of December 2025, Caledon-Spoort will then operate on a 24-hour basis. It will therefore run from 6 until the other 6, which then becomes a 24-hour operation only on the 24th. That is what is described as Christmas Eve, so that we can get everybody to the other side. In terms of Van Rooyen's Gate, it also operates from 6 to 10. We are going to start at 6 and still close at midnight on the 23rd of December, as well as on the 4th of January 2026. And of course, once again, even for Van Rooyen's Gate, on the 24th of December, we are going to open it for 24 hours. These are very critical dates where we anticipate highest volumes, and that is why you can see that we are actually trying to operate throughout the night. In terms of Mononsa Park, it operates at, Mononsa Pass, it operates from 8 until 1600 hours. We are then going to allow it to, to be extended by more hours, and we are going to ultimately close at 1800 hours and no longer at 1600 hours. So on this basis, this is going to be on the 13th, the 20th, the 23rd, and the 24th of December 2025, including the 2nd up to the 5th of January 2026. And of course, the last one is Peka Bridge, a very small port into Lesotho. Mostly it operates from 8 until 6, and on that particular basis, we are then also going to extend, and we are then going to be closing at 1800 hours. Once again, the 13th, the 20th, the 23rd, and the 24th of December, together with the 2nd and the 5th of January 2026. So those are the extended operating hours. They become very much critical for those that are going to be traveling, to make sure that they note this particular extension of operating hours. We do know that sometimes when people don't take this kind of messages more seriously, you find people arriving at the port at the time that the port is closed. Unfortunately, they will have to be sitting and sleeping in the vehicles until the port opens the following day, and that becomes very much untenable. So it is very much critical to note some of these hours. Now, in terms of the execution phase is going to start on the 10th of December. That is a few days from now, and on that basis, we are going to run it until the 15th of January 2026. This particular phase is divided into 2 legs. We are going to handle what we call the exit leg, or what others might call a departure leg. It is going to be starting from the 10th of December until the 31st of December. The majority of the people at that particular period will be exiting the country. And of course, we are then going to handle entry leg, or what others will describe as the return leg. And that is going to start from the 1st of January until the 15th of January in 2026. During this phase, we will be intensifying our measures to detect and seize anything, whether it's narcotics, illicit goods, even stolen vehicles. We therefore want to warn all travelers to desist from committing any act of criminality around any port of entry or even at the border law enforcement area. That becomes very much critical, because with the kind of technology we will then be enhancing its presence, we will definitely be able to detect individuals and ultimately get them arrested. During the exit leg in particular, the corridor becomes very much central in as far as its full monitoring as well as ensuring effective traffic flow towards the port of entry. And for that, the Road Traffic Management Corporation will be providing leadership, working together with the Cross-Border Road Transport Agency. And of course, they will be working closely with the provincial traffic authorities as well as the local traffic authorities to make sure that there is no chaos en route to the port on the corridors. We do know the problematic corridors. N1 to Beitbridge, very problematic. N4 to Libombo, very problematic. And on that basis, we have to then be putting more effort in those particular corridors to make sure that everything is done accordingly. Now, to ensure the effective processing of all travelers within the port, we would like to re-emphasize the key requirements that must be observed by respective travelers in terms of various areas of specialization. This is very much important. If you are going to be traveling, it is always important to note that these are the requirements. It becomes very much difficult when we have people stuck at the port and ultimately having to try and get things done not in accordance with the law. Unfortunately, no compliance, it means no entry. And that is the reality. And that is also inclusive even in terms of exit. Now, let's start with the requirements regarding port health issues. We want to start here by indicating that people who are going to be inbound into South Africa, our port health teams would like to remind them that they will be screened on their arrival at the port of entry. This is meant to avoid any witting or unwitting importation of any communicable or infectious disease into the country. And this is critical when we go to the return leg, which is going to be implemented from January. Further, we would like to also urge all travelers presenting signs of illness to present themselves to the BMA Port Health team members on arrival. However, should they experience being unwell after their travel and they encounter some kind of signals of some kind of a sickness, they need to visit their nearest health facility or consult their own private doctors for medical examination. Very much critical. As for travelers arriving from yellow fever endemic countries, they will be required to present a valid yellow fever vaccination certificate. Otherwise, failure to produce that certificate will result in a traveler being refused entry into the country by the BMA Port Health team members. In terms of the exportation and the importation of human remains through the port of entry, people are required to present a cross-border permit issued by the National Department of Health that will actually authorize the mortal remain to enter the jurisdiction or even to exit. Therefore, no human remain will be imported or exported without such permit issued by the relevant authorities. And of course, upon arrival at the port, permit must be presented to the port health team member for the full inspection and ultimately the further process. In terms of immigration specialized function, the team on the ground would like to remind all travelers entering or departing South Africa that they should be in possession of a valid machine-readable passport containing at least 2 completely unused pages, excluding the last page, which must always remain blank. On visa requirements, the immigration team remains vigilant in enforcing compliance with the terms and condition of various visas and permits at the port of entry as issued by the principal organ of state. At the port of entry, it is mandatory for the inward foreign travelers to produce a residential address of their intended place of stay within South Africa. All travelers who are granted a particular visa are only permitted to engage in activities permitted by such visa. For instance, a student visa, the person who has been issued with a student visa should actually participate in educational related matters, but not on employment related issues. Regarding the movement of children, parents traveling with a child must produce an unabridged birth certificate for the child showing both parents' details. If only one parent is traveling, an affidavit from the other parent authorizing the travel, or the court order granting full parental rights, or a death certificate of the other parent will be required. Otherwise, failure to produce these required documents will result in that child not being permitted to exit the country. When it comes to agricultural biosecurity space, we just want to emphasize, as the team had indicated, that all inward travelers to avoid bringing products such as meat, fruits, or any other regulated goods. This is very much important, particularly those traveling through our land ports. People go home, wherever they go, whether they go to Zimbabwe, they go to Mozambique, or they go to Malawi, and they come back with a boot full of your mangoes and your bananas and your every other thing, which is basically something good. Probably they were given by the uncle, very much appreciated. But the reality of it is not allowed to enter the jurisdiction. And that is the current protocol that has to be implemented, being issued by the Department of Agriculture. In those instances, unfortunately, we will be offloading all of those and get them destroyed. And that is the reality. We want to emphasize, any kind of those kind of products, they are regulated goods and they can be imported into the country through proper issued by the relevant organs of state. For instance, travelers should note that the BMA agricultural biosecurity inspectors do conduct luggage inspection at the port of entry by means of visual or sniffer dogs to ensure compliance to the movement of agricultural products. Should such products be detected, as I said, they shall be confiscated and destroyed. Therefore, for the smooth facilitation of plants or their products at the designated port of entry, importers or exporters are required to present both import permit issued by the Department of Agriculture together with the phytosanitary certificate issued by the country of origin, with full compliance to the South African import condition. Similarly, even with the movement of animals and their products, importers are expected to present an import permit issued by the Agricultural Department, as well as the veterinary health certificate issued by the country of origin, and once again in full compliance to all the protocols and the provisions in as far as import conditions are concerned. When it comes to environmental biodiversity and biosecurity space, once again the team wants to remind travelers that they will be intensifying the inspection and the monitoring of all consignments that contain listed endangered species or regulated specimens at our port of entry as part of their responsibility to safeguard this country's ecosystem from invasive as well as alien species. Therefore, people are reminded to comply with the environmental biodiversity and biosecurity prescripts regarding the exportation, re-exportation or importation of endangered animals and plants. In this regard, the relevant permits will be required as issued by the relevant authorities. For instance, when importing alien invasive species into South Africa, the importer should obtain the relevant import permit from the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment. Therefore, for proper processing at the port, the importer will be expected to present the original import permit, packaging list, customs declaration form, together with the phytosanitary certificate for plants or veterinary health certificate for animals as issued by the relevant departmental authorities. However, should non-compliance be identified, the matter will be handed over to the enforcement team of the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment for investigation. In terms of the demobilization phase, we want to indicate that the demobilization phase will actually be done on the 16th of January 2026. By that time, our projections is that the majority of the travelers will have returned into the country. Therefore, those particular ports of entry with extended operating hours will be returning to their normal operating hours. Additional staff members that would have been deployed will be returning to their normal posts, and of course, that will then be followed through by normal operational activities, including relevant debriefing sessions. In terms of the sustenance phase, we want to indicate that from the 17th of January, we are then going to be ensuring that the activities and the learnings and the lessons of the festive season get sustained, and that will basically be done through normal operations within the port and obviously leading us into the 2026 Easter operations. In conclusion, we would like to remind members of the public about the BMA hotline, which is 080-122-9019, which is to be used to report any kind of corruption or unethical conduct experienced at the port of entry or the border law enforcement area. Otherwise, people can also use the BMA website, which is www.bma.gov.za, to lodge such kind of reports. We assure the public, our stakeholders, our international partners that the BMA is fully prepared, fully mobilized and fully committed to delivering a seamless 2025-2026 festive season operations. As the Border Management Authority, we would like to wish everyone a safe and pleasant festive season. We continue to be in your service, securing borders for development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, for sharing with us the operational plan for this festive season. It was obviously a multi-phase plan, focusing on the planning, execution, demobilization, as well as the sustenance. There was also an emphasis on the queue management, traffic control, as well as the collaboration that we need to have with, obviously, our agencies. Focus also on the high volume ports, and there is also an indication of those ports where we have extended operational hours. We are also happy that we were able to share with us the obviously Q2 report, which focused on the apprehensions that we made, as well as travelers that we have processed within Q2, including those vehicles that were obviously meant to be going to the other side of the border. Thank you very much for that. We have indicated that we will request, in terms of the next item, one person from operation, that is Dr. Moses Nkoma, the Deputy Assistant Commissioner in the operation space, to come and use the screen to demonstrate how this body-worn camera will be utilized in various ports of entry. We will request Dr. Nkoma to come to the podium. We'll give him 3 minutes or so, and then I'm not sure as to whether he will be assisted by another colleague, but I do know that there is a technician who will be showing us how this body-worn camera will be utilized to support our operations. Dr. Nkoma, sir.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Just maybe to just begin by indicating why body-worn cameras. And I think the Commissioner did indicate the various challenges that we are experiencing at our ports, such as issues of misconduct and so forth. But in summary, the key advantages that are offered by body-worn cameras includes issues of increased accountability as well as transparency, reduced complaints and misconduct, because our space is characterized by quite enhanced interactions between travelers and officials. And it is given that you will have a number of complaints to that effect. But there are issues of enhanced evidence collections that are offered by the body-worn cameras, because each interaction between the officers and the member of the public will be recorded, including interaction between and amongst officials themselves. But it also offers issues of improved officer and public safety, because members of the public are unlikely to be aggressive towards officials if they know that they are recorded. We are also able to identify training needs, because with the interactions between officers and members of the public, we are able to identify certain traits and behaviors that will obviously need to be monitored and corrected. So the body-worn cameras that would be worn by individual officials will be linked to a command and control system that will be situated at the port of entry itself, a command center at the port of entry, as well as a command center at the BMA headquarters. So there will be live streaming into those two areas that will be monitored on a 24-hour basis by our operational command center officials. So if you look at the screen that is currently in display, this is OR Tambo International Airport. These are the terminals where officials are facilitating the movement of persons into and out of the Republic. As you may see that you are able to see an immigration officer performing his or her duties, as well as a traveler that has presented himself in front of the immigration officer. You are able to see the entire process in terms of the scanning of the passport, recording of the particulars of a traveler into the movement control system. So should there be any query or complaint or a case for investigation, we should be able to tap into the recording so that we are able to have a proper investigation of a complaint or a case that has been opened. But the link is not only limited to officials that are sitting at the counters. We have teams within border law enforcement who are mobile, who will also be issued with body-worn cameras, and we are able to see their interaction at the various inspection points within the port of entry. We are also in the space of aviation, conduct what we call the rummaging of flights, where border law enforcement officials will approach a flight for the purpose of searching it. Same with in a land modality, where buses and taxis will be approached, and our border law enforcement officials will be searching those buses. So you will be able to see the actual rummaging of a particular flight or a bus in the case of land modality, or a ship in a maritime space. The command and control system also has what we call a digital evidence management system, where the entire value chain will be stored, and we will be able also to retrieve any footage to that effect. This is a continuation. This is a different terminal. The earlier one that we showed was a departure terminal. This is the arrival terminal, still at OR Tambo International Airport. So we have this technology deployed at our critical and strategic points at our ports of entry, both at land as well as aviation. Yeah, that's brief explanation of the capabilities that we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nkomo, for sharing with us the capabilities that we'll be deploying during this festive season. Obviously, these are one of those. We will then request Deputy Assistant Commissioner Meme Mokhotsi to come and handle the next item, that is the questions and answer session. I do know that the commissioner is very elaborative in terms of his engagement, but such that there might not necessarily be any questions. But in the event that there are, as Deputy Assistant Commissioner Meme Mkhotsi will assist us to render that item. Thank you.
Thank you to our chairperson. Good morning to the Commissioner of the Border Management Authority, Dr. Michael Masiapato, the Deputy Commissioner of Operations in the BMA, Major General David Chilembe, our Assistant Commissioners here in the room, the Deputy Assistant Commissioners, the entire border management system, our partners who will be supporting us in the festive season operations, members of the media. Good morning to all of you. As it is tradition, we request that members of the media that have the questions, can they please introduce themselves and indicate the media houses that they are representing here in the room. So we'll start the first round of questions here, and then we'll go to the online platforms. You can go ahead.
Good morning, Zola Sholana here from Newsroom Africa. I just have a few questions for the Commissioner. Are there any contingency plans in place for system failures or power outages at border posts during this time, this festive season? What are the key highlights of BMA's Q2 performance report for the 2025 and 2026 financial year? And the last question is, where has the BMA seen the greatest improvements and where do challenges still persist?
Thank you for that, Zola. Any other questions? Can go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Patrick Maran from ESA. In terms of the new technologies that you have introduced, since the introduction, I just want to hear from you how effective are they to where we are, because in some of the borders that are really problematic, like Bike Region in Limpopo, we know that people there do not necessarily come and cross through the border. There are other entries that they use. How are you, dealing with that? Is your equipment effective enough to deal with that?
Is that all? Yeah. All right. Yes. Thank you. Zola, would you like to?
Sorry, I forgot one more question. Would you say that the Border Management Authority is adequately staffed to respond to peak travel volumes, especially at the busiest land borders?
All right. Thank you for that. If there are no other questions, Commissioner.
Yeah, no, thanks, colleagues, for the questions. Madam Zola, you're very much right around the contingency plan. So when we do this kind of planning, that becomes one of the most critical issues that we look at in order to make sure that we are very much ready to deal with any kind of failure. So firstly, when it comes to issues of power failure, for instance, which is obviously the genesis of the rest of the other failures, we can confirm that our ports do have what you will call uninterrupted power system supply, which is in the form of your generators and all of that. So what we basically mostly do is to make sure, not just in the festive, but we do that all the time, is to make sure that the diesels are ready, so that should power failure kicks in, we are able to activate the generators, just for the purposes of dealing with issues of power failure. And of course, as you will know, the Border Management Authority is more of a landlord, only in the land ports of entry. So here we talk about all of the 52 land ports. We can say 51 because the other one is inside Kruger National Park, which the landlord is actually Sun Parks. And on that basis, we can say out of the 51, we are the landlord and we take care of all of these issues. But when it comes to other modalities, like air, for example, you will be aware that Airports Company South Africa, AXA, is the landlord, and therefore they are the ones who have to be making sure that there is power supply stability. And we do know that they also have generators to be able to make sure that should there be failure, they are then able to activate. Similarly, if you go into the C modality, we do have the landlord there called TNPK, Transnet National Ports Authority. So they are the landlord, we are obviously a tenant, and therefore they also have the same kind of plan to make sure that power is supplied throughout. Now, your second question is around the issue of systems, obviously going together with the issue of power, because once power goes off, then the system is in trouble, and that is very true. One of the things that we can confirm is that we don't have a seamless transition, and that is a fact. I mean, if you were to have seamless transition, it is a high technology, and we don't have that. Meaning, if power goes off, we have to literally run into the machine and start it. Obviously, by that time, the computers will be off. So it means that we then have to have some kind of a disruption for a particular period. It might be 10 minutes or whatever the minute to make sure that the systems are kick-started back to operation. Now, how do we facilitate that? We facilitate that by making sure that ICT experts are on the ground throughout our critical ports. By the way, we spoke about 10 ports that are very much critical in moving the majority of the people. Those 10 ports that I have cited, those are the ports that move over 75% of the travelers, whether in Festive or otherwise. And on that particular basis, those are the ports where we put more effort on as part of our planning. So yes, we have those plans on the table. The ICT teams are on the table. We have spoken about those that will advance, obviously from the BMA side. Obviously, we have a partnership with Gijima, and we do have the Gijima technicians on the ground. And of course, in the back office, we do have, as I said, the SARS technicians together with Home Affairs technicians to be able to do remote assistance. And of course, if that is something that is not necessarily able to assist remotely, they will be able to get to the ground. Those are some of the plans that we've put through. But again, something that you did not ask, but it falls within the contingency aspect, is the issue about, let's say, floods that we know are very much problematic in our western corridor, particularly the ports into Botswana. Groblersdal Bridge is one of those that always suffers, but there are a lot of them through the Moloto River that side or through the Limpopo River, as it were. So obviously there, what we basically have is just the ability to still continue doing the work. But unfortunately, when it becomes real and literally the entire place becomes flooded, you can't do everything else except to close the port. And that is the reality that we are facing. It is for that reason why Groblersdal Bridge in particular, because it is sitting on the flood line, we are looking at making sure that we are going to move it out of that space and move it inward and try to create a fly bridge that will go into Martin Drift side, which is the side of Botswana. All these are contingencies that are there, but of course, like I'm saying, when it comes to flood, it will just be the issue of saying everything is underwater and there's nothing to do except to close the port and talk to members of the public and talk about the nearest port that they can use. That is the nature of the work that we do. Now, what are the key highlights in terms of the quarter two? What we can talk to around the key highlights for us is the ability to have facilitated in that quarter a lot of dignitaries. I'm not even talking about the G20 Leader Summit. We talk about over 40 meetings that happened in that period of 3 months. We are able to facilitate high-level individuals, ministers, and every other people from all over the world. And they literally came into the country. They went to all the provinces to actually attend all of these meetings. So obviously, the Leaders Summit happened outside the quarter two that we spoke about. It happened just quite recently, which is in quarter three. But in quarter two, our ability to have done that seamlessly actually is one of the biggest highlights. But the second key highlight, particularly in terms of what we have spoken about, is the fact that we have started to see high levels of compliance. For us, that is a proactive highlight that we want to talk about. When we did the BRICS summit in 2023, we had a lot of problems. And part of the problems we had is that you have big people, as you will call them, ministers and governors and all of these respected people. Then they arrive at the port and they don't have requisite documents. And by protocol, they have to be exited or denied entry. And obviously, then you are sitting between diplomacy and your law enforcement and all of those issues. So it was a very difficult thing. So we learned at that time, and that is why this time around what we did was to engage with DERCO, the Department of International Relations, and agreed that we need to speak ahead of time with all of these countries, their embassies and ambassadors and everybody, and re-emphasize the requirements, so that when people come here, we don't have drama, which is very much unnecessary. And I can give you a typical example. Most of the other countries out there, we are also going to go there, but we are not there yet. Most of the other countries out there no longer, for example, use passports because they have just automated, it's electronic, it's facial, it's every other thing and stuff like that. So you find that individuals, based on being used to that kind of an enterprise, they will definitely come here with a passport that is probably full, as an example, nowhere to stamp. Unfortunately, the existing protocols, we can't allow them in. And those were the highlights in terms of the work we did proactively, to the extent that we didn't have much of a problem where we have to be dealing with whether somebody must actually be allowed in or not. Where are the improvements? You see, you're asking big questions, Madam Zola, because those are things that can take the longest time. But let me talk about this. Firstly, the improvement we talk about is the ability to have integrated all the various structures into a single authority under a single boss inside the port of entry. That for us is what we will call it an improvement. An improvement in the sense that it was a journey, even after 2 years, that we had to infuse that. We have to bring people from all the 4 departments from across into one and ultimately have one chief and ultimately have to start comply. But more critically, starting to work together, which is basically an issue around organizational, cultural change and all of those kind of issues. So that is what we will say is the improvement, to the extent that if you go to the port now, there is better standard operating procedures that highlights activities that needs to happen in the port, and that fragmentation is actually not that much existing. That is the improvement in terms of organizational stabilization. However, what that has done, it has also started to assist in terms of bringing seamless movement of people and cargo inside the port. And I can give a typical example here without necessarily wanting to give an impression that we will want to be taking credit alone. We worked very hard with SARS. And I want to give an example of Oshuk, port of entry. When we did a time release study there, trucks on the N17 corridor used to stand there for almost 5 hours and all of those kind of issues. But we had to engage with our Swati counterpart or Eswatini counterparts together with SARS. After the time release study, we put in different mechanism of working. And now we talk about 20 minutes that the trucks actually are processed end to end. Not on the South African side only, South Africa through into Eswatini in Oshuk is 20 minutes. But as you will know, our future state is to make sure we have a no-stop border post when it comes to the movement of cargo. That's what we need to be looking at. But those are some of the things that I can highlight for now based on your question. What are the challenges? The challenges, madam, is very straightforward. Is the issue of money and nothing else. Because once that comes, it will deal with the rest. So if I start to talk about the symptoms, it's still not going to be able to assist. Which then leads into your question. Are we, as the BMA, fully staffed to be able to deal with this mandate? We have said it, and it is on record. The BMA structure requires 11,200 people. We are now 1,600, just around there. If you basic maths, you will realize we are operating at 25% capacity, 75% short. So we are sitting at around 8,500 vacancy rate. So that is there. It's not like it's breaking news, by the way. Even in Parliament, they know that. We have reported that, and that is a fact. So if we were to answer your question, are we adequately staffed? The answer is no. That's the point. What do? Do we have to be lamenting forever? We couldn't. That is why we had to do partnerships that we have spoken about in the statement. The leadership in the Western Cape, they would actually phone every time and say, but there is queue here at the airport, there is queue. We said, but this is the number of immigration officers we have. We have no any other to bring here. Can you actually assist, and so that we can address this problem together? And I can tell you, they did assist. They gave us 50 individuals that we have deployed in there that are doing immigration work, and the problem is resolved. They are paying for those people. We are just using them. So until BMA is fully capacitated, we will work in this way. Similarly, OR Tambo, lot of issues, lot of queues. We had to say to Gauteng, can you give us people? They gave us 80 of the people. They are now in the space, and they are assisting us to deal with the issues. So from a BMA point of view, we are not adequately staffed, and that is why we are going to all of these structures to assist us with people in the meantime, whilst we are building the organization. I suppose one had answered all your questions, Madam Zola. Bafedile, introduction of new tech, how effective they are. Yeah, again, Bafedile, you're asking a big question, and I know you've been on the borderline there on the east, and you have seen some fireworks there. So maybe let's put it this way. When we talk about this tech, even in the context of this work, we talk about 4 drones. Because we cannot be talking as if we are, because if you don't talk numbers, sometimes it sounds like it's a lot. No, it's only 4. And out of 4, 2 work. 2. So effectively, if you remove day and night, we have 2 drones. And we have, if you talk land, 52 land ports. If you forget about the rest of the others and you talk about the top ones, we have 6 top ports, land ports, and you have 2. Meaning, for us to be able to use drones, we obviously use risk modeling. We use intelligence and we move them from one area to the other. We can't tell where are they because we use them to be able to deal with illegal migration, and that is the essence. Now, are they effective? And I want to be very practical. You will remember, I don't know whether you were in April, in a 10-day period of festive operations, we did indicate that through the drones, we were able to actually identify 114 facilitators that have actually been facilitating illegal migration. That was in Bedbridge, that was in Maseru Bridge and Fixback, together with Libombo. 114. When we arrest or when we identify facilitators, we don't deport them, we arrest them. We take them to the police and go charge them for aiding and abetting, and they have to go through the system. Why do we target the facilitators? People normally cannot go into the bush by themselves. They get facilitated by individuals who will direct them where to walk, which route, and all of those. So we use the drone to identify the person who is in front and who is busy showing the people the way. And that is the person we arrest, and we don't deport that one. We will arrest the others and deport, but that one we take to the police station. That is what we have done. And that has assisted us to reduce the level of illegal migration. Let me also be practical. You will remember before, what people will do, they come in a bus, whether it's from Zim side or it's from Lesotho side or from Mozambique side. When they arrive at the port on the other side, people without documents, they move out of the bus and they go to the bush. 2 or 3 people with documents, they enter the port. They get processed, the driver gets processed, everything is fine. When that particular bus exits the port, the people emerge from the bush, enter into the bus, and then they drive into the country. If you remember, almost every weekend, there will be buses intercepted like that on the corridor, whether on the N1, on the N4, and all of the other places. Ask yourself, why has that tendency gone down? It's exactly because of the drones. Because what we do now, we put the drone up, we can see all the activities, not only on our side, but also that side. So people, when they do that, we see them already, and we allow them to move and all. When they come through, we intercept. Then we arrest the driver of the bus, because he's now a facilitator, and we make sure that the bus is put aside, and we deal with the rest of the other people. So those are the kind of things that we've done. That's why you can, even the police on the N1 corridor, how many or when last did they stop a bus there with everybody without document? It's because of those interventions. And those interventions are not particular of other issues, but those are just the few that I'm actually trying to cite. The issue around the body cams, very much powerful. I think you've seen what is critical about the technology like a body cam. Sitting in Pretoria, we see we hear, and every other thing, what the person is doing with the traveler. Now, if there's going to be an issue that, no, this person wanted 20 rand or 100 rand or whatever, obviously that becomes a summarily dismissible offense. And on that basis, we don't play when it comes to those. And that is the kind of what we will call the how effective the introduced technology is, so that at least we are able to make sure that we deal with some of those. But it is also helping the officials, in case they're in trouble, they can press in and be assisted. Now, the issue of the borderline, you're very much right, hence I say I know that you have been there, is on the basis that we still continue to grapple with the issue of people going to the vulnerable segments. We are not going to give a philosophical statement and say people no longer go to vulnerable segments. They do go, and we keep intercepting, and we keep deporting, and they keep coming. The only thing that I can put my head on the block on, people no longer walk with impunity into the country illegally. And that is where the reduction is. But we are not saying people had completely stopped. You will know that there are areas that are very complicated, where people are sitting between the struggled borderline, whether it's on the eastern corridor with Mozambique, also on the northeastern corridor with Eswatini, or actually even this side on the western side with Botswana. So there are people that are sitting in between the borderline that has struggled them. So if we are going to argue that there are no people that are moving in between completely, that wouldn't necessarily be correct. However, you must remember what is the midst of dealing with illegal migration. Driving illegality, whether they push in cigarettes illegally or they push out stolen vehicles. Those are the big focus as we deal with the broader issues of illegal migration. So as we speak now, as the BMA, back to the question of Zola about the staff, is the fact that we have 600 border guards. We only have 50 coastal guards. So at that particular juncture, we can fairly agree. Technology is assisting, but our response rate on the ground is also as not what we are supposed to, primarily because we are still very much understaffed, and of course we should be able to deal with the issues. However, we are assisted by the police and the defense force in doing border law enforcement work, because we are still building the organization. So I suppose that would have attempted to respond to all the questions as raised. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. I don't think that was an attempt. You did answer all the questions that were asked. I do know that there is one question that was asked by somebody who did that online. And then I thought before we could go to that, I give anyone an opportunity to follow up if there is any. Yes, from ENCA. But
Commissioner, earlier on when you were answering one of the questions, you said that you don't want particularly when it comes to the airports. Just last month we saw a group of Palestinians coming through with plane there, and you had promised where these people are coming from, what's happening with them at this point in time. Can you please talk to us about that?
okay, thank you very much for that question. Are you going to read the question that was registered online? No. Are you going to be able to attempt to answer that question, Commissioner?
Let's talk to the issue.
Okay.
So, Bafedile, why do you bring this one? Maybe let me put it this way, colleagues. The BMA issued a statement on the night of that activity. And the BMA statement was very much clear in terms of what the BMA had to do in relation with the BMA's legal mandate. So the BMA was not to do any investigation, because we don't do investigations of that nature. It is that reason that the investigation had to be done by the security structures, which will be either the police, state security agency, and other structures. And that was done, which is why the executive authority, which is the lawmaker or the one in charge, issued a statement yesterday, and that is the Minister of Home Affairs, Dr. Leon Schreiber, indicating what has actually, or what took place and ultimately what has been the outcome of the investigation and what is the action of South Africa. Remember, as the BMA, we are a frontline organization. What we do, we implement directives coming from the principal organ of state. If we talk immigration, we do implement issues coming from Home Affairs. If we talk health, we implement issues coming from the Department of Health. If we talk agriculture, we implement issues coming from agriculture. In terms of environmental, we implement issues coming from the DFFE. So that is who we are. We just do the work. And therefore, if something is starting to become a bit outside just border management, it gets elevated to other spaces. Now, so that it does not sound like I did not answer your question, let me answer it in the context of the statement as issued, so that we are all in order. We confirmed in the statement that yes, the Palestinians arrived in that particular port, which is OR Tambo. When they arrived there, Dr. Nkoma spoke about what is called aircraft rummaging. And that is what happened. It was rummaged. Rummaging means you put it aside and people don't necessarily exit for the purposes of doing some work. And that was obviously on the basis of the alert that had come, obviously from the intelligence community. In that particular instance, we had to do border management work. As you will remember, 4 critical specialized functions. Nothing confusing. What was those functions? Number one, our port health specialist went into the aircraft. They scanned everybody in terms of health-related issues, and they all passed. So when they've passed, it means that from a health perspective, they qualify to enter the country. Now, what is our next specialized function? Our next specialized function is immigration. Obviously, the immigration officers enters there and apply the law in as far as immigration is concerned. And that is what happened. Now, first thing to do is to check everybody passport, they all had. Passport valid, they are all valid. So there's no issue. Secondly, there is no visa. Why? Because they have a visa exemption for 90 days. So they are fine, paperwork-wise. But part of immigration work is engaging the traveler to understand, you're coming here on a visitor's visa. How long are you going to stay in the country? Where are you going to be staying? Do you have money to sustain yourself? And of course, do you have a return ticket? And they failed all those questions. According to protocol, obviously, they cannot be allowed into the country. So the statement has put that very clear, and they were not allowed into the country because they failed those questions. And that is why they had to be processed out. So in the process of being processed out, as you know, there were 153. 23 of them said, actually, now we are in transit. We are not coming to your country. We are going somewhere. And the 23, as you know by now, they actually bought tickets, and we had to verify the visas that they said they had, and they flew out of OR Tambo into the countries where they were going. And that actually got addressed. Then we got left with 130 in the aircraft. And that is the reality. And now the question is, these 130 are to be flown out. And obviously, as you know by now, that flying out or flying them out got delayed because that has to be done by the airline, not by BMA. We don't fly people out. So on that particular basis, they delayed flying them out. Obviously, then drama started emerging. That's exactly what I say we don't want. But it started emerging because people said it is hot in here and what and all that. So we took the people out, if you remember, out of the aircraft into buses, ventilation and everything like that to make sure that people are in a proper place. But the reality of it is we couldn't process them into the country because they had failed basic immigration work. From where I sit, even if I can say with all authority vested in me, I have no authority to go and tell immigration officers to break the law. And that must be very clear in as far as this process is concerned. And that is basically what happened. So effectively, the work of the BMA was done up to that point. And then we know what happened later. What happened later is that the executive authority, which is now the minister of the Department of Home Affairs, get approached by some NGO, the NGO that says, those people failed these questions. We are here to take accountability for those questions. We are here to actually make them pass those particular questions. And that happened very much late in the day. What does that mean in simple terms? Where are you going to stay? They don't know This one says, no, I will give them a place to stay. Where are you go? I mean, do you have money to sustain yourself? Yes, I'm going to take care of their food and their medication. Do you have tickets to fly out of South Africa after the 90 days? Yes, I will buy them ticket. And that becomes a formal guarantor of failing this particular activity. And I want to put it very clear, by the way, colleagues, so it doesn't sound like there is some cooking of the books. This is a normal process. If you fly to the US now, and you are in JF Kennedy, and you want to enter the US, and there is a person that side that had actually invited you in, and they ask you, which hotel are you going to stay? By that time, if you are not able or you can't remember, that particular host will be able to say, oh, by the way, this is where I have booked this person that I've brought in, and all of that. So once that happens, the people then get allowed into the country. And that is what happened. Why did it take the whole day? It took the whole day because the people would have been flown out earlier in the day. And that is basically the essence. But because, obviously, of the airline issues, they were not able to do so. And that is why we ended up with that situation. Now, from a border management authority point of view, because that happened, what did we have to do? We have to get a guarantee correspondence from the executive authority, giving assurance and the guarantor together with this particular correspondent that came from the NGO. And the minister, as you have seen, maybe you know by now, did write a letter to say, as the Minister of Home Affairs, being the executive authority, the one in charge of the law on immigration, I am now asking you as the BMA to release the people into the country because there is this guarantee here that has been issued by a very credible structure, or what we call NGO, in the country. And that is why we process them into the country. And that is how it ultimately happened. Anything illegal, nothing illegal, that particular correspondence covers that particular issue. If it was because somebody does not have a passport, there is no any provision, colleagues. No passport, going home. And that is how it is. Visa, no visa, the minister can do visa waiver, if you read the Immigration Act. So those are the kind of things that are there, and we implement the law as it stands. And that is why in certain instances, when we deny people entry because their passport doesn't have empty pages to stamp, they say, yeah, but where I come from, we don't stamp passports anymore. We say, but here we still stamp passports. That can only be changed by the principal organ of state, and we get a directive, and we will implement accordingly. From a BMA point of view, we work in the front line. If we break any law, it is us that are going to be fired by the same principal organs of state, which is the department. If there is anything they want us to change, they put it in writing and say, this is how you need to do 1, 2, 3. Which then leads me to the last point in closing this issue, Bafedile. You have seen the what you will call the letter from the minister yesterday, which is a media statement. But one thing that is very critical is the issue that he has now withdrawn the visa exemption. Meaning that should people from that place, Palestine, want to come here, now they must apply for a visa. Where do they apply for a visa? They apply with the Department of Home Affairs. What does that mean? It means when now they arrive at the port, BMA has received a directive already. We need a passport, we need a visa, because now the exemption has been taken away. That is how it works. And there's no any confusion in as far as this part is concerned. So that is basically what transpired. Other question, who organized the aircraft, who paid for it, and what? Those are non-border management questions. And therefore, I'm not able to talk to those. And they can be spoken to by the relevant authorities. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. I think Bafedile is comfortable that that question has been responded to. We are coming towards the end of the program. We will then request Assistant Commissioner Masiapato to give us a vote of thanks, and then we will go and eat something with the finger lunch stuff. Assistant Commissioner.
Commissioner of the Border Management Authority, Dr. Michael Masiapato, Deputy Commissioner for Corporate Services, Madam Jane Tupana in absentia, she's not with us today, Deputy Commissioner for Operations, Major General, David Shilembe, Assistant Commissioners present here today. I see all of them are here. Border Management and also the Deputy Assistant Commissioners, colleagues, members of the Border Management community, representatives of the media and fellow South Africans, good morning. On behalf of the Border Management Authority, I extend our sincere appreciation to all officials, our corporate partners supporting the festive season's operation, members of the media who have actually honored us here today during today's briefing. Good morning to you too. Allow me to begin by expressing our gratitude to our Commissioner, Dr. Michael Masiapato, David Shilembe, Deputy Commissioner, David Shilembe, our Commissioner Jane Tupana, who is also not here with us today, for the state leadership and strategic guidance that you have been giving us. Your unwavering commitment continues to strengthen our border management capabilities. My tablet is doing what Commissioner's tablet is always doing. Sorry about that. Your unwavering commitment continues to strengthen our border management capabilities and ensure the border management remains aligned with the national security priorities. We are especially grateful to the media fraternity for joining us today. Your role in conveying accurate and timely information to the public is very critical to promoting transparency and enhancing commitment and public confidence in our work. As part of the festive deployment program, the Commissioner will be conducting on-the-ground visits to several ports of entry. On the 17th to the 18th of December 2025, our Commissioner will be at Fixbeck Port of Entry. On the 19th of December 2025, he will be at Maseru Bay Bridge, and on the 21st to 25th of December, he will be at Libombo Port of Entry. During this period, he will be doing the walkabout in order to ensure that the work of the BMA is actually done there and also showing visibility. For the return peak phase, he will be deployed to the Bay Bridge from the 2nd to the 5th of January. This means basically there's no Christmas and New Year for you, Commissioner. These visits will be including comprehensive walkabout and operations and high-risk areas. We also acknowledge and appreciate the support of our intergovernmental partners across law enforcement and other organs of state. Our continued collaboration and your continued collaboration is very much central to us achieving an integrated and coordinated border management approach. A special word of thanks is extended to our corporate partners who have supported the authority during the festive period. These include the South African Freight Forwarders Association, the Association of Meat Importers and Exporters, and the South African Ship Operators and Agents who have contributed through the cost recovery model. We further express our gratitude to DCD Protectors Mobility, ASELSAM South Africa, the Unipro Protective Wear and their support in providing mobility and protective technologies, to Sanlam and ASIPOL for assisting us with employee well-being. I can see here we are also drinking already water from the Sanlam to keep you hydrated, to Track and Sanral for also enhancing that the traffic flow management is enhanced in our roads, to our partners in the law enforcement and various government departments operating in the border management and border management communities, as well as the dedicated men and women in green of the BMA our operational teams, inspectors, support staff, your commitment does not go unnoticed. While South Africans are going to be taking time off to rest and enjoy their time with their families during this festive season, we remain committed to doing our job. It is this period that your work must be intensified. Your dedication to securing our borders is sincerely appreciated and very much valued. Lastly, let me thank everyone who contributed to the planning. DAC Mkhotsi and your team, we really appreciate the work that you are doing. Your efforts have ensured that we have got this smooth engagement and continue to do that valuable work. We value your ongoing support and look forward to continued collaboration as we strengthen our border operations throughout these festive seasons. I take it that when the Commissioner was speaking here in terms of the support that we are getting, he was actually highlighting and outlining the challenges that we have as BMA, others are also listening and they will actually come on board in order to try and assist the work of the BMA, as this is not solely the responsibility of Border Management Authority. It means everyone must lend in a hand and come and assist us. With this, I really thank you very much. And Commissioner spoke about lunch. I can confirm that there is something that has been prepared there. I think it's this side of just after the reception where there are security. You can grab something there, and I think there's still time. You can still go to church. With that, thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our briefing. So in the event that there are those who want to have a one-on-one engagement with the Commissioner, they will interact with the Deputy Assistant Commissioner, Meme Mkhotsi, and then I believe those one-on-one will be done in this very room. Thank you very much.
Hey,